Welcome to the channel, friends. So today's video is going to be a quick overview of the LEANPRO Sight Pusher tool. Now I'm going to go over why I bought this and why I am not keeping this and I am returning this item. It's because I misunderstood the use of it, because this tool here is actually only good for the rear sight of your pistol slide. Now it will not do the typical front sights because of this right here. So if you have a slide like this on your pistol and you have the recoil spring housing lug here, some people call it the spring box, and some people call it the recoil spring housing, or whatever you want to call it. So this right here is the reason why this sight pusher is not going to work for me and not this slide or any other of the pistols I have, because essentially when you line this thing up in the fixture here, the pusher tool fixture, the actual pusher does not line up on center of the dovetail because of this offset here. It cannot compensate for the depth of this spring box here. So because I can't recess it into the tool, it actually does not push directly on center. It kind of pushes off to the back, and I don't want it to push off center because it will twist the sight and possibly snap it. So I don't want to damage my sight or damage the slide itself. So I'm going to still review the tool and show you exactly what I'm talking about here. But it still does work for the rear sight. So if you were to use it for the rear sight, it still would work for that function. So let's get this thing opened up and take a look at it. So as you can see, a really nice box, really nice labeling. You have a kind of a simple directions, instructions, and parts list. This one here is in blue, but I actually got the black one. So nice foam packaging. We have some protective felt that goes on the jaws and on like the top adjustment tool. So that's really nice. And here is the tool itself. I'm just going to pull it out here. It comes with, like I said, the felt pads to protect the jaws, an Allen wrench, as well as a handle for the tool itself, and a punch of some sort. So this has a little handle, but it looks like a small punch, which can be handy. So let's go over some of these things here. I'll just give you a close-up really quick of what's included. Like I said, this is to protect your pistol slide. This goes and applies right to the jaws of the tool. I will show you that. And there's your tools. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. This thing has quite a bit of adjustment. That's why I kind of was drawn to it at the first place. It has the ability to push angled sights as well as your squared off standard sights. Okay. Really robust design. I like this tool because of this reason right here. You have a handle and a hex on the drive here. So that's what caught my attention, because a lot of the other pusher tools, the cheap ones especially, just have a handle that usually looks like they break off. If you look at the listings on eBay, you'll see some of the more common ones with all the handles snapped off because it's just like a pressed on fit. But this has a nice handle that you can kind of spin that around. If you wanted to, you could put an actual like socket on this with a ratchet and crank it down. But the construction is still very robust on this sight pushing tool. One of the important factors is that you want a lot of surface area on the jaws, so make a lot of contact with your pistol slide. You want that range of adjustment to center it within the fixture, within the sight pushing tool, as well as this platform right here, which goes up and down with this thumb wheel, as you can see. That there is important because you want this to be totally stable and not tilt. Because if it does tilt, it will tilt the slide, and then you'll have issues because then it's not sitting square and it could cause damage. Even though this is still protected, you could start rubbing on the corners of these jaws here. So that's one thing you want to consider when you push a sight off, or left or right, or adjust it. You want to make sure that slide, when it sits in there, it's nice and square. You do not want any movement or any possibility of it moving while you're making the adjustment, putting a ton of tension on it, because you're putting a lot of force on there. And if that slide starts moving and starts twisting in there, guess what's going to happen? It's going to become damaged at some point, because the bottom of the slide, if you don't know, is milled out. You see how there's a rail, a cut, a channel all through here? Well, when you twist it and put a ton of force right there on the bottom, you can actually crack the slide and cause a fracture along the bottom here, because it's somewhat fragile on the inside here, because it's all machined out. So it's not solid. That's why there's some other sight pusher tools, like the MGW one, which is a really nice one, a really expensive one, has a block that goes inside here, fitted to the exact same shape and profile of the inner channels here, okay? And that will actually essentially grab the thing and pull it down onto that platform and keep it nice and square and sturdy and tight. And there's no movement, no possibility for it to twist within the fixture. So that's what I'm, concerned about when it comes to these cheaper sight tools. This is a cheap one, okay? I'm not going to beat around the bush. I wanted to try it out, give it a chance to see if it'll work, and sure enough, it does work on the rear sight, but like I said, it does not work on the front sight. So you have all these adjustments to center it, to tighten it. You also have this block up here to come down on the top. That's also protected. These jaws are protected with that felt. You can also use painter's tape, is a good, cheap alternative. But this here will come in contact with the top of the slide and keep it in place. Okay? So I'm going to install the slide in there right now and show you exactly how this works. I'm not actually going to push the sight off, because I want to return this tool and I don't want to mar it up or damage it in any way. So I'm just going to very carefully use it and demonstrate it for you. I am not going to push the tool, because I don't want to put too much tension in here and possibly cause it to, show wear marks, and then I can't get my return. So I still want to provide you guys with an honest overview and review of this thing. I won't be keeping it, mainly because of that reason. I can't fit my slide because of the spring box there in the bottom. So let's go ahead now. Oh, one other thing is that I really like this here. You see this here, the scale, and there's an actual arrow on the block here, on a pusher block. This is very handy, because a lot of the other cheap sight pushers have a scale, but they don't have a reference mark on the pusher that moves around to make reference to the scale. So you end up having to look at the side of the block and reference whichever hash mark you're near. But this, I like this one here. That was my one of my other kind of main attractions to this sight pushing tool, is because of this arrow here. I liked how it was very, very discerning on how you can really read that scale and your adjustments as you make them. So let's go ahead now and carefully install this. I'm going to use this top adjustment wheel here to put some tension on the top of the slide. As you can see, it comes straight down. Just very carefully. I'm just going to put a very light pressure in there. I don't want to mark up my finish. Now, as you can see here, we have a slight issue. We have to actually bring this further up. Okay, so first of all, so we don't run into the slide with a pusher, but also the angled face of the slide poses a problem here. You see how the slide is not completely square all the way up to the top? So your FNs, your SIGs, your P320s, things like that, they're going to have an angled face on them. Okay, so first let's go and correct this other condition here. I'm going to back this off, raise this as much as I can. I think right there is the best I can get it. I'm going to put some tension with the top here now, just to keep it in place for the video. That there, you have some bite, but it's not a full bite on the top of the slide, which kind of worries me. Also, another thing, you want to be in the very supported side of the, or end of the slide as well. You don't want to be squeezing the middle of the slide where it's hollow and there's no support. But right here is what I'm talking about, okay? So it's kind of close to lining up, okay? But the actual pusher is not on center with the dovetail or the sight blade itself. So if this thing will focus, you can possibly see it. But you get the idea. It's not on center line. The pusher would have to either be further out or the slide has to be further into the fixture, the pusher tool. So because of that, because of this spring box, that recoil spring housing, it's not possible because it's not recessed. Now you could say, oh, you can go ahead and cut a notch in here into this aluminum. I don't want to do that because this tool was not designed to have a big cutout like that, and doing something like that will actually weaken this platform. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to modify the tool. I'm just going to return it and buy the proper tool. But this is why, like I said, this does not work, is because this thing's, the actual pusher tool, the pusher head sits outside of the fixture, and essentially if you don't have that notch, that recess for the slide, it's not going to work. You can try, but you might end up snapping these sights right off onto the slide. So that's the reason why it doesn't work for me, at least. Some slides might not have a recoil box. You know, it's really rare, but most are going to have this type of feature hanging below the slide. So to undo this, it's the same thing, okay? In self-explanatory, like I was showing you guys, if you were to push the sight on and off, you could do it like this, okay? You run the pusher head right into the side, the blade of, you see that? The slide, the sight there, and just keep on pushing. And you apply pressure, and it pushes the actual sight left to right, depending on what you want to do. I'm not going to do that, like I said, because I don't want to damage the tool. I'm going to return it. So let's go ahead and loosen this, and I want to show you what it looks like when it's attached to the rear of the slide. You just have to reverse the slide, line it up. I'm going to push this down now. Kind of line this up and just put a little bit of tension just to get my bearings here. You want to center the slide as well. Put a little tension on the top. You don't have to crank on these at all. All you want to do is like come in contact and give it a little snug fit. And there it is, okay? That's what it would look like if you were to push off the rear sight on this. You'll go ahead and proceed. This pusher tool actually would be flipped to this side, not the angled side, because I have flat-sided sights here. I just didn't go ahead and change that out, but you get the idea. You would go ahead and push this left and right and make your adjustments. Okay? Very simple. But that's what it would look like. It does a great job for the rear sight. So if you have a setup like this, your slide is, you know, very similar, but doesn't have the spring box, the recoil housing end on it, then you'd be good to go. This is a great option because, like I said, this has a nice hexed feature here, so you can put a socket on it and a wrench and crank on it if you had to, but it comes with this nice handle, which is nice. Overall, this thing is extremely nice. It's made out of aluminum. The threads are all steel. The fasteners are all steel. This here is all aluminum. Okay? The base is aluminum, all one piece. It's bolted on the top here. I mean, overall, it's a very nice quality sight pusher. It's just not going to work for me. So that's going to be it for the video, guys. If you have any other questions, please let me know. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.